Hey, to whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it, the odds can stack back against the world.
Hey, Book Dragons, it's your girl Lindsay with the Spine Bookshop. I thank you again for tuning into the Spine Bookcast, Chronicles of a Bookshop. Today, my guest is the lovely Elizabeth Cook, the author of The Rising, which I just finished this book on Sunday. And when I tell you it is so, so good, like, oh, so good. It's going to be a duology, which she had better be doing because he knows why. But yeah, thank you for coming in today to talk to us, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited, very excited. So Elizabeth is one of my writers in the Spine Bookshop. Elizabeth, how did you get into reading?
Well, honestly, it started when, I was first born. Parents, told my siblings no baby talk, all this kind of stuff. Because my siblings are a little older than me. The closest one is 10 years older than me.
Okay.
And they, were very big in no baby talk. And if you do anything with her, you're going to play, you're going to use, correct language, you're going to do this kind of stuff, and you can read to her.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, what my siblings did. We read books, from the get-go.
Okay.
And of course, my dad is one of your other authors.
Yes, he is.
And he, his story, The Last Christmas Tree, he, wrote that originally on one of those yellow legal pads.
I love that so much.
And, I had him read it to me whenever, it didn't matter that it wasn't Christmas. It was, I needed to hear this story all over and over and over again. And by the time I was 3, I had it memorized.
Wow.
And so, I was reading, my mom and I were going grocery shopping one time when I was little, and I had an itty bitty yellow legal pad, and I was reading her this story. And I was like, where are we at? What is this word, Mommy? And she had to remember where she was, or where I was in the story, to tell me what the word was. Oh yeah, that's it. And I just kept reading. And so my mom and dad were big on bedtime stories, and they would read to me every night. When I got Mom, if she was reading to me, it was Dr. Seuss or some kind of fairy tale. My dad would do like Disney stories and Pokey Little Puppy.
I love the Pokey Little Puppy so much.
Oh, he was one of my favorites. And I actually, when Micah was little, my son, I would read to him Pokey Little Puppy. And he didn't like it as much as, I did, but that's okay.
I love that. I just love that so much. So what was, you're an adult like me. What is your favorite book?
Oh my gosh.
I know that's like asking you to pick one of your favorite children, but.
Yeah. Oh man. Actually, one of my favorites is a duology by Evelyn Skye.
Okay.
It's called The Crown's Game.
Okay.
And the second one is The Crown's Fate. And it's this amazing story about, late 1800s Russia.
Okay.
And how the Tsar would use these people that they had magic.
Okay.
And they could, conjure, gold streets or snow or all sorts of things. And they, when the Tsar needed them, they have to go through a trial to be the Tsar's one and only. And so that's and it's like, it's, one of those that you can sit and you can read this book it's one of those you read it in a day. 'Cause it's
I
that
love
good.
that. Well, let me tell y'all a little bit about who Elizabeth is. So, if you've been watching us or you're following us or anything, you know that we made the news the other day as well as the radio. And it's all because Elizabeth wrote a little letter that launched 1,000 books. That's how I'm telling you. I'm going to print it out. I'm going to put it in a picture frame, and that's the title that's going to be on the frame. So she sent an email, which is just the most heartfelt email I've ever read in my whole life. And we're not going to read it because that's just between me and Elizabeth. But she wrote this email to Cole Johnson of Channel 5 News down here in Nashville. And he showed up and decided that he wanted to interview me at my quirky little bookshop. And so the day that he called to interview me, I was in a raggedy t-shirt and gray sweater and some blue capri like joggers with a hole in the thigh and some like hot glue stains. And I was like, there you go, this is what we are, this is the authentic book owner. And so I called Elizabeth and I said, okay, you need to come over here right now. He's going to be here at 1. You better be here at 12:30. I'm not doing this interview by myself. You brought this on me. I'm not doing this by myself.
And at 12:28, I was walking through the door.
Yes, you are. I will give you credit for that. Yes, you are. So she walked in, and then we had another author that walked in, and we completely jumped on poor Kevin. And we're like, hey, so guess what?
Yeah, I did feel bad
And
for him.
Well, to Kevin's credit, he just was kind of just like, all right, cool. This is what we're doing. Sure, why not? Let's do it. And it ended up going on Channel 5 News. And then apparently somebody said they showed it on Talk of the Town. And then 92.9 Radio picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, it was all over the news, all over the radio. And so the payoff really came on Saturday when we did our 2-year anniversary. And I swear we had to have had like 1,000 people that whole day
It
in
was
and out.
packed all day long. It was crazy.
It was fantastic. Well, because we had 15 local authors. Unfortunately, Elizabeth was not one of them. Next year, though.
Yes.
And we had 15 local authors, and so all of them got to meet all these amazing people. And so the town, our little Smyrna town got to meet all these amazing local authors. And I say that because every single time, I say this all the time, every time that I see a remake of, let's see, like A Star is Born, and I say this with the caveat that I have loved every single redo of that movie.
They've all been
good. They've all been good. However, why are we redoing this movie when you have all of these like massively amazing local author books like Elizabeth, Dan's, Lloyd's? All of his could be on like a Twilight Zone episode, like, and you've got people like Donna Madden and J.L. Burrows. And I mean, there's just every single time that I see a remake, I just want to do that Will Smith meme where his arms are out and he's pointing to my bookshop.
Like right here.
To our local book. Yeah. So like I keep telling Dan that, which we're going to talk to him next week, but I keep telling him that his series, the Leaving Earth series, even yours, I think, because of where we're going to get into yours in a minute, but I keep saying his would make a great miniseries or like, a 3-season television show or because I've never heard of anything like that before. Just same thing with you took the Princess and Prince story, brought it into the modern world. Yeah, y'all are going to get this raw and uncut. You took it into the modern world, and anybody that's from this area is going to really love it. Tell them why they're going to. It's my favorite part about your whole book. If you're from here, you're going to love this book.
Well, the palace is the Opryland Hotel. Yeah,
I just love that so much.
It's one of those. It was the only place that worked in my head of being, because it's so big. I mean, it could
Hmm.
be its own city if it, be a
Yeah.
small city, but it's still. And because it has this huge basement area, it could have a hospital, a training center for military, all this kind of stuff,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it be right in one spot. And that's
And
exactly.
I just really love that because you didn't tell me that
Nope.
when I was reading it. And so I started reading it, and she does. I will say this too, that I was thinking about this earlier. You do this really cool thing where you kind of give a historical lesson in the beginning of this is what's happened. This is where we are. This is how this came to be. This is how this happened. And I thought that was very, very cool in that you kind of were like in a movie, this is where we are and this is how we got here. A brief summary by Elizabeth Cook.
Yeah. And well, I kind of got the idea for that from the Hunger Games. Like when you read the
Hmm.
books, you don't get
Yeah.
the backstory, but when you see the movies, you get the backstory of the country and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And it's like, oh, where was that when I was reading the book? And so
Right. No, 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 absolutely.
so that was like, I'm just going to stick that right up front because that's where it
Yeah.
needed. I was like, you need some backstory. You need to understand.
No, and I think that's great. I think that really worked for yours.
But it, I was like, it really did. It needed to be, because okay, where is this place?
Hmm.
Because if I told, just mention this country, you're going to be like, well, where could that be? And yes, it could.
Hmm.
It honestly could have been anywhere. But to have
Sure.
this hotel that went from being this grand hotel to being a palace, and
I just think that was such a cool touch.
it was, you had. It's like, okay, you need some backstory. You got to have it.
Sure.
And because if how did we get there, it'd be too
Hmm.
many questions.
Hmm.
And it's like, so I'll just answer them up front. You don't have to worry about the
Yeah.
questions.
Well, and I love the fact that you being a local writer from here in Nashville, Tennessee area, that you took this iconic thing that everybody knows, Grand Ole Opry, Opryland,
Mhm.
Opryland Hotel, like country music, that whole thing, and you spun it on its ear and turned it into something it would never would have occurred to me that that would have been a palace. It not in a million years. But now that's all I can think about. And so like I'll be reading certain sections of your book and I'm like, oh, I know what she's talking about. I've been to that I've been to that atrium. I know what restaurant
Yeah,
she's talking to.
it's like
And it's just the coolest thing for this area that any of us who've grown up around the Opryland Hotel will read it and be like,
I
oh
know right
yeah.
where that's at. Like
Yeah.
there's a part in the book where Luke and Ara are walking together and they come across this red line that's out in a pole in the
Hmm.
Delta Conservatory. And
I knew exactly what you were doing before you even got all the way through that.
he's telling, way back when, there was this flood. And so we would have been underwater at that point. And it's just, and of course, Ara knows the story. She's just kind of like, oh, that's, that is wild to think about. But
Hmm.
it's, to me, to add those little details in there was kind of fun because I could picture them standing there and looking at that pole, just
Hmm.
like I've done
Hmm.
1,000 times since
Yeah.
2010. And,
Right.
looking at it just like they are in the story. And
And I love that you did that. I love that you brought that part of history that all of us remember and you've applied it to the story because I just think that's one of those special touches about your story that makes it so so good.
as one of the, I love to hear that kind of stuff because then it's like, what it meant to me. If it means that to somebody else, I'm going, yes, I did
Hmm.
it. I did exactly what
Yes,
I
no,
wanted to
I
do.
love it. Your story, I like that your story kind of takes like the Hunger Games and the palace and the whole prince and princess and the military and, how the different countries and how the United States got divided, like all of that. But it's not a sad story. Like some of them can be very heavy and very
Yeah.
sad. Yours is more about the two people who just want someone to see them.
Yeah.
And I really liked that that's the direction that you went with, that it wasn't a political story. It wasn't a um, dystopian story per se. It was just about two people, and this is who they are, and they just want someone to see them.
Yeah.
But you have that event in the end with the rising, and I like how you went about doing that. And like I know that you and I've talked before about all the different characters and just and so I will tell you too, I got mad at her because when you read the end of the book, there's a little bit of a kicker. And so I read the book and I texted, I think it was like what, 8 o'clock at night, because I
I think
read it all
so.
in one day. And I was like, ma'am, fix it. This is gonna be a sequel, right? Fix it.
It's like, oh yeah.
You know what you did,
And
ma'am.
and it's being fixed. Yeah. A friend of mine, you're close to having this fixed.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay.
Well, and I think it's really, I'm sorry, I think it's really cool too that you've written a book, because we have talked about, how your friends got mad at you about the ending like I did,
Yeah.
and you warned me, but I don't think that you warned me adequately enough. But I feel like that you've written this book that has inspired this emotion from people, which I think I really do believe that if you have some kind of like visceral reaction to what's happening in a book, it means the book is good, because that book is making you have, oh my gosh,
Yes. That's what kind
and
of books I love
I
to
think
read.
exactly. And I think that if you don't have that reaction, it means you're not reaching your target audience, but I think that your book, you immediately have that, oh my, what? Oh, with the ending, and it's just like the last 2 pages
Yeah.
that you just have that, wait,
Where's the
what?
rest?
And you're, no. And I just think that's amazing. You've been able to write a book that has that kind of, that causes this visceral gut reaction of, I am going to kill her. What is wrong? Why would you do that?
And and the thing is, I've gotten that reaction from everybody that's what did you do? Where's the rest? And I'm like, I promise, it's coming. It really is. Just give me
Yeah.
a little bit and it'll be done.
Well, I know that you and I, because I've talked to you about character development, and I really like all the characters that are in your book. Can you talk about some of the characters that are in your book and like what they're based off of, and how you kind of came to those type of people?
Well, yeah, you and I have talked about it before. One of our favorite characters is Abigail, or Abby.
Yes,
She
I love
is
her.
Luke's little sister. And
She's a mess, and I love her.
she is so sassy. And she gets her point across, and she just tells you like it is, and if you don't like it, oh well. And
Yeah.
and she is actually the inspiration for her character was my sister-in-law, Alicia.
I love that.
Alicia is this, I absolutely love her. She is fantastic. And she is like that perfect fit for my brother. Yeah, and
Which is fantastic.
and they are, and my brother is the inspiration for Rowan. Yeah.
I love that.
Rowan is extremely protective of his sisters, and that's my brother. He is absolutely protective, but Rowan is different with like each of his sisters, like he is, my brother was with me and my
Sure.
sisters. I'm the baby.
Sure.
I'm the baby. And
Right.
my brother, there's actually a line in the book that I stole from my brother. It's an actual quote that he used to use all the time.
Hilarious.
Why do you three always have to make her cry? and and that's
I
exactly
love
what he
that.
used to say. And he would snatch me up, and just like Rowan does Ara in the story, and it's like, yeah, that was real life right there.
I absolutely adore that. And I know that we had talked about your sister and what happened to her and who she's based off. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, in the story,
And don't cry because we'll have to cry together.
yeah, that's the hard part. In the story, Ara loses her big sister Kara after
Mm-hmm.
childbirth. She gives birth.
Right.
Kara gives birth to triplets, and she gets what we know as childbed fever. It's what women get an
Mm-hmm.
infection, and they can't fight it because they're so weak after giving birth,
Right.
and that's what Kara dies from. Now, that experience, I actually was writing that around the anniversary of when my sister Carrie passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, around that time, all the things come rushing back.
Right.
And there are times when I, like, nope, it's going to be I'm going to laugh at the things that my sister did. I'm going to, laugh at
Mm-hmm.
how funny she was, and how she was street smart, but
Mm-hmm.
she had her moments of being really, really blonde. And it was so much fun. I mean, of course, I know I'm a huge Disney movie fan, and I'm sure you are too. And
Sleeping Beauty all day long.
well, Lady and the Tramp, that's my.
See? Oh, that's
But
fantastic.
when I was I was younger, and Carrie and me and my other two sisters and two of Carrie's kids and our cousins, we all went to a drive-in movie to see Hercules.
Oh, I love Hercules.
And in this movie, there are things that if you don't, you're like, you're listening to it, and then you go, wait, did he just say what I think he said? And one
Mm-hmm.
of those times was when the little kids, or the little monsters, are looking like kids, and they're stuck in the rock, and they, quick, somebody call
Mm-hmm.
IXII. And me being a tween age,
Sure.
and my sisters, except for Carrie, we all got it. We all thought it was hilarious. And she was looking at us like we were nuts. She said, I don't get it. What is that? Why is that funny? And we looked at her, and Carrie, IXII is Roman numerals for 911.
Yep.
And she was like, oh, and then she
Oh.
lost it. And we started, we lost
Yeah.
it again because, Carrie was the blonde, and it took her a few minutes.
I love it. That's so funny.
But that's, and so, but there are years where, like when I was writing this, that it was more of a raw emotion,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
more of, I can't believe she's not here. I can't, how is it that I can't pick up the phone and call her? And,
Sure.
how is it that she's not seeing her nephew grow up? And she,
Mm-hmm.
she
Mm-hmm.
never got to meet my husband. And I know that he would have loved picking at my sister because she would have
Sure.
picked back. And so, that was what I was dealing with. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, it was a
Excuse me.
hard decision to kill off a character that quickly, even though she wasn't really
Mm-hmm.
in the book, other than she got mentioned.
Yeah, you owe me half a box of Kleenex for that, by the way.
And I've heard that a couple of times too. And so, yeah, but I wrote what I dealt with the day that Carrie died and
Sure.
how much, I remember going through the hospital hallways crying and not really being able to see. And
Sure.
yeah, but unlike Aura, I didn't run into anybody.
Oh,
But yeah, that was just one of the other things that, I added in that it didn't happen right when Carrie died. It was actually probably about 6-8 months later that a friend of mine and I had the conversation that Luke and Ara have at the very end of the chapter.
I love that conversation so, so, so much because, especially for the fact that, so she says the typical stuff you would always say. And he goes, no, no, no. I want to know what she was like. Like, what was she like? What did she like? Who was she to you? He wanted to know about her, not about her, but tell me what you love about her. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I really thought that was such a great way to handle grief because grief is just that weird thing that hits you in the most random way sometimes.
Yes.
And I love the way you handled that in the book.
And and then in the next chapter, it was her and Luke trying to get back to a little bit of a normal. And that's, I think you never really get back to normal after losing someone.
No.
But it's your new normal.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I had talked about, my bookstore and how I never would have had my bookstore had it not been for Tammy.
yeah.
Because I had gotten laid off during COVID, and Tammy and Janie and I all went to college together. Janie and I lived together, but Tammy was always at our apartment, and we've been friends for, God, 20 years, I think. And so when COVID happened, I got laid off, and I just was like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And Tammy told me to are you going to get off your butt and actually start this bookstore you've been talking about for 20 plus years? Or are you just going to keep talking about it? And she helped me do a website with like 3 books that I didn't want anymore. And that's how we started it on my birthday in my pajamas online with 3 books and a website. And, I like losing her was gut wrenching, and it took me a really long time to kind of feel normal, like the new normal,
Yeah.
like what you're talking. And then like Saturday, you think you're fine. And then you have this thing where like I was standing there Saturday morning looking at the billions of people, for the bookshop, standing in there talking to all these like 15 authors and just hundreds of people standing around buying books and talking to people and talking about reading and books and all the things that I loved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just had I almost started crying because I just had that moment of, God, I wish Tammy were here.
Yep.
Because Tammy unfortunately passed away last year from an aneurysm, but it was just, look what I wish that she was here to see what she did.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have any of that. And grief is just so funny in that way that you be going along just fine and all of a sudden you're not fine.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate in the book how even after she dies and Luke and Ara have those 2 conversations, and then they also end up having, towards the end where she has all these dresses that have to be bought for the rising because she's not there. Her husband, or no, I'm sorry, the brother gets her a dress that he knows that she would have wanted him to get. So she's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still just that grief process still makes them all stop for a minute. And I loved the way that you handled grief in this story. I think it was such a delicate way to handle that without beating you over the head and making everybody cry.
And the thing is, grief, you go through so many things. It's
Mhm.
and so I just, it's like, okay, I'm going to deal with the raw and trying to get back to that sense of normal. And
Mhm.
how do I compress it? How do I get it to where it's going to work in a story, but not dominate the story?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that you did an excellent
Well,
job.
thank you. Yeah,
And I love the character development so much.
and I Ara, I have to say, is probably, I loved writing her, but yeah, my favorite character to actually write was not Luke or Ara. It's actually the villain. It's actually Nero.
He is just well, and it's so funny that you say that because the minute I read Nero, all I could see was some dude standing on a porch playing a violin while everything burns to the ground. And I immediately hated him right from the get go. Just absolutely, you are a horrible person and I can't stand you. And I hate your guts. And I just love that you wrote a character that makes us all just right from the get go. That's just really good.
Yes, and the thing is, he is. I mean, he is that villain that you want to punch him from the get go. And honestly, those are my favorite kind of villains to have. Is that you just want to. And the thing is, we've talked about it. Yeah, I have his ending already done. It's just got to be, probably edited just a little bit. It. I'll just say it's very satisfying. It's very satisfying.
It had better be because I hope it's one of those viral reactions or I'm sorry, not viral, visceral reactions like with Joffrey on Game of Thrones, where everybody in the room when we were watching the episode where he chokes to death, we were all standing up applauding and screaming and cheering because we all hated him so much. So whenever you're reading something or you see a movie or you have this character that everybody just despises and he finally gets his comeuppance and you just kind of
Oh yeah, you
yes,
make sure that when you start to read, it's going to be towards of course, the end of the book, end of the second book, and
hmm
yeah, be ready and remember where you are in the story, because you're probably going to like throw the book down and go yes. Because honestly,
I
that's
love
how
it.
when I wrote that down, I was like,
hmm
that felt good.
And I know you're probably not going to say this, but is there anyone that you know that you've based off of Nero?
you know, there are a lot of people that kind of combined to make him, and there are a whole lot of people that know I
Sure,
would never say who they are, because
of
I
course.
don't want to get that oh, that's you have defamed
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
me.
yeah.
And so I would never say who they are, but there are a few that I combined their horrible personalities and made Nero. And but he
Sure,
was
sure. Well, he is an excellent villain. I mean, right out of the gate, I was sitting there going, had that, oh my God
and the thing is,
reaction.
and you know that he's going to be a jerk from the very first little bit, and then he just keeps getting worse.
I don't think that you're accurately prepared for how much of a horrible bastard he is.
And he but he does it so well. And he
Oh, yeah.
actually I've warned people, he gets worse. He actually does get worse.
Yeah, that's what you said to me. And I stared at my phone and went, but
So
why though?
that his ending is
But I mean,
satisfying.
well, and I think that that's the kind of what I love about books because there's so many books where you have the villain and you just it's hard to read because you so desperately want the villain to just get what's coming to him, and you just all the things that he does, and you just hate that. And then when they finally do, and you're reading the book, and nobody else is reading a book, you're just sitting and you go, "Oh God, finally!" And everybody just looks at you like you're
Yep.
absolutely crazy, and you're just kind of go, "Ha ha,
And
look."
the villain just got
And I
his.
just, but yeah, the villain just got his comeuppance, But I told somebody the other day, I said, I think it's so funny when you're reading a book or you've read a book and you see that someone else is currently reading that book. It's like the book is going, you two should be friends, because in no other world will you have two strangers who see each other and like, oh, what are you reading? I'm reading this. What are you
Yep.
reading? Oh, I'm reading. Oh, you know what book you would really like? And immediate
Yeah.
friendship. And that's what I love about reading, is that it's a level playing field for people who would never normally talk under normal circumstances to immediately go, ooh,
Oh, that's an awesome book. And and you'll love the
yeah,
sequel.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
if it doesn't have one, oh, you'll love the ending.
yeah. Yeah. No, and that's what I love about reading so much. And, like I've said it before, any single time that I see a remake, I just stare at my local author shelf with this look of just, okay.
Well,
You know what I mean? Because I just want to send the whole bookshelf to Hollywood and be like, pick any of them, and then we'll make a better movie.
I do have a plan for when the Rising is 100% complete. When the novellas are done.
Yeah, we've talked about the
Yep,
novellas
and what
and
will
stuff.
be, and there's, the very final ending of, Luke and Ara's story is, it'll be
Mm-hmm.
one of the novellas, and there's one that, talks about how Luke becomes king when Luke's a teenager, all this kind of stuff, and one that's about Harley and her backstory.
Oh,
Because she was another fun one to write, and but I didn't want to put her, it's like, okay, there's a lot of characters already in this story, and I don't want to add.
Sure.
She just doesn't. It's like, no, just don't want to talk about my family, and it's like, okay, we'll dive into that later.
Sure.
And
Right.
But once
Right.
those are all done, my best friend and I have talked about that I'm just going to take all the books and I'm going to ship them to Netflix and just see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
Just see what happens.
That is genius.
And,
oh my gosh. That's really smart. We need to start your campaign now.
For, to get it to Netflix. And because I think, honestly, the way I wrote the book, it kind of lends itself perfectly to being a TV show.
Okay, so since we're talking about that, who's your ideal cast?
Oh, man. Oh, that's easy. I would want Danielle Rose Russell to play Ara. And
okay, I'm going to look her up right now because I want to make sure it's who I think it is. So you said Danielle Rose Russell. Okay.
And she was actually in the originals and Legacies.
Oh, I love her. I think she would be awesome. Oh, that's a good choice.
She's just.
Now tell him who the brother Rowan would be, because that's my favorite part.
I picture Rowan as Joseph Morgan, who plays Klaus. Oh, like, and the thing is, he's such this, in the shows that he's been in, he plays this great villain. But when you see him in real life, like I follow him on Instagram, and he is like,
it's hard to say.
And he is like one of the sweetest people you would ever see. And I'm like,
and he truly loves his fans. Like, he appreciates where he is and the position that he has.
So that's like, seeing him off camera is what makes me think that he would be a great Rowan.
I can see that, kind of like Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I cannot think of what his name is. Matt Marshall, James. I'll think of it in a minute. But that guy, And then he was in P.S. I Love
Yes.
You. And he just played this sweet, just best
Yep.
friend guy. And you just,
And you go,
I just loved him.
yeah, yeah, and it's that kind of character flip.
My best friend is going to kill me that I can't remember his name right
Well,
now. I can hear the
I
email
can't
coming.
even remember his name. And the thing is, I watched Buffy. That was one of my shows back in the day.
Yeah, you and I are definitely the Buffy
And
generation for
that
sure.
was one of my I every week got to sit in front. Nope, just leave me alone watching
Mm-hmm.
Buffy.
Yeah, don't call me. Don't
Mm,
call me if it's Thursday
yeah,
night. Don't
it's
call me.
and but yeah, and of course, like I guess I really like those CW shows because
Oh, they're
well,
so
and they
good.
pick such good characters, and the
The casting is good too for that character because I feel like that if you have this great character and you don't cast it right,
yeah, it just kind of falls flat.
it just doesn't work.
And
Mm-hmm.
well, and one of the other shows that the CW did was Reign, and it's about Mary, Queen of Scots.
Okay, see, I'm gonna have to pull this up on my TV now and add it to my favorites because I feel like that because you've said that to me before about that show, and I feel like I now need to search
Oh,
for
because it
it
is. You
because
will from the first episode, you will get drawn in, and you're like, ooh. And now,
and I like shows
and
like
for
that.
me, it's kind of cool because yeah, my husband and I, our families both come from Scotland, and
Oh, really? Okay,
and
that's cool.
so my husband being a cook, he is what they call a sept
Mm-hmm.
of the Stuart clan of Scotland, and that's the same clan that
Okay,
Mary Queen of Scots came from.
sure.
And so, yeah, knowing that, we are of that same family, we may be
I
completely
love
distant.
that.
I mean, there's no chance that we're like directly related to her,
Sure.
but it's cool to know that we're of that same family, and
Yeah. No, I totally,
so
totally
that
get
was,
that.
for me, that was really cool to watch that show. But the guy that I pick to
I
play
love.
Luke comes from that show, and his name is Steve Lund.
Oh yeah, we talked about
And
him. I love him.
he does Hallmark movies, and so he's got this sweet side. But his character in Rain, he yeah, you never quite know. Like to me, I never knew really where he was until like
Sure.
closer to the end of the story, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I like him. I really like him.
Yeah.
and and so
Yeah.
I kept thinking about while I was writing, is like they tell you to picture who you would want to play these characters, and
Sure. Sure.
and Ara was easy. Ara came to me in no time, and then I was
Right.
like, I don't know who would be. And I couldn't, it's like, I don't know. I have no idea. I cannot picture this person in my mind.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, and so that's like the clockwork by Cassandra Clare, the clock print what that whole
oh yeah,
clockwork series, like the
I know what you're talking
clockwork ugh, I can't think of the title because my brain is tired. But
After this weekend,
that
I don't
whole
blame you.
series, I mean, I was a long weekend. But the clock, whatever that
Yeah,
series is, City of Angels and City of
yeah,
Bones and that whole
yep.
series. I am obsessed with that series. Sorry, Cassandra Clare, don't be mad that it took me a minute to get the name right. But I was completely obsessed with the City of Bones series. I have all of them in hardback. I love them. That is my series. That is my jam. When I heard they were doing a movie, I was really excited
Did
about
you watch
it.
the
And then
TV
they,
show?
ugh, yeah.
Yeah, I liked it.
I wish y'all could see my
I
face.
liked
I was so
but it was. I
mad.
mean, the TV. It wasn't as good as the books, but nothing ever is. But
It was
but
awful.
the okay, the guy that plays oh gosh, what is his name? The dad, the
Jamie Bauer.
Valentine. Okay, the
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
that plays him, Nero. That's
No.
Nero.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
You see it? That's
oh.
who I picture is. That's who I
Yeah.
picture.
Oh,
Because he does evil so
dude.
well.
I mean, oh God, oh
But can you
God.
can
Yeah,
you picture
okay,
that?
okay, okay. Well, and so no shade to Jamie Bauer, I think is the guy who plays the main character. I just Jace. I have yet to see Jace cast either on the TV show and on the movie in a way that I thought he
I
should
know
look.
but I don't know that there's a good
I,
person to fit him.
there is, and I will come up with his name in just a minute of who I had in mind for him. But because I remember when I was reading it, I thought, and then I saw it, and it was like, what? No, that's not what he looks like. My poor husband. I'm sure he's getting very sick of going to movies with me and, hearing me like, ugh, in the middle
Because
of the
that's not
movie.
how it was.
That's when he knows. No, and he always says that the minute I sigh, that he knows that it's not going
Well,
well.
the thing, like, I remember, came to the Twilight game kind of late. A friend of
Sure.
a
Oh,
friend of
same.
mine, like my sister, she was one of those that she wanted. If she didn't have to work the hours that she did, she would have been one of those that was in the theater line at midnight waiting to go in. But
I can see that.
but yeah, my friend at the time, she was like, oh, it was after the final movie had come out and all this kind of stuff. And she was like, girl, you really got to read
Mm-hmm.
these. These are really good. And I was like,
Yeah.
I kept
Yeah. Yeah.
picturing,
Yeah.
like, in the back of my mind, like Anne Rice vampires. And I was like, and, and
No.
I was like, I
Yeah.
don't want to, I like Anne Rice, but not my thing. And she was like, oh
Yeah.
no, nothing
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Just seriously, read this book. And she hands me the first one. She says, you can borrow
Sure.
mine. I read,
She's better than I am because I don't loan books.
and well, I read that first, maybe half of it in
Mm-hmm.
just a couple hours. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I need to buy the rest of these. I need to buy these.
Yep.
And so as soon
Yep.
as I would finish a book, I would watch the movies. And so, I'm
Yes.
going through the
Yes.
movies and I was so excited because I was at the end. I was like, yes, final movie, get to
Yes.
watch this. And
Yes.
my sweet husband was watching these with me because he got to where he was watching the movies when I would watch them. Because, he was
Sure.
like, I just, want to hang out with my wife. And she's really enjoying these. But he got into the movies too. He's never read the books, but he likes the movies.
Okay. Here is who I thought could play Jace and his name is Cam Giganti. He played the bad guy in the first Twilight
Oh,
movie. The
yeah.
blonde. That is who I
Okay.
saw as doing that.
Yes.
I was like, there.
And now
That's
that you
yes.
say,
That is who could do
now that
it.
you say that, yes, I can see that completely.
That's who I had in my head as playing, because they have him as this really skinny person or very
And in the books, he's
thin,
not
and
thin.
I just did not see him as thin. I mean, he's
But
lean,
not like,
but he's not
I never pictured
thin.
him that way.
Yeah, I always pictured him as built and muscular, but not
Yeah.
thin.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And no shade to the other actors, but it's just like,
The one
what?
the one in the TV show was a little closer than the one in the movie.
Yeah, that's the I can't think of what his name is. But it was
Yeah,
it
he
was
was
close,
closer.
but still not. But see, but then the girl in the TV show was just like, what?
That's not.
Did y'all read the description? No, why can't y'all get this right?
They were probably trying to do a little different than the movie, and I'm like, no.
No, if you're gonna do it right.
And that's
So
yeah, and I have told my bestie that I'm like, look, if this ever does become, I want
mhm.
in on the production side, because I'm going to be no, that's not right.
Thank you.
That is
Thank
not right.
you.
No, we
Thank
can't do
you.
it that way.
Thank you.
And
Well, we're about out of time. Thank you so much for sitting and talking with me today. And everybody needs to read Elizabeth Cook's book, and you can get it on our website, thespinebookshop.com. It's The Rising by Elizabeth Cook. And I'm telling you, just be prepared for the ending, but she's writing. She's going to fix
I've
it.
got the second one started.
Hey, to whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it, the odds seem stacked back against the wall, but even consider it such, no, you'll stand tall. Sat and watch from the sideline.